Emot Quaith Quagan Gwenda Bay. It's really good to see everyone this morning. My name's Richard Hardy, Chair of the Electoral Area Services Committee. We have alternate Director LaRock here this morning. Welcome. And we have Director Arbor showing up a little bit later on here. So before we get started into the agenda, again, just like to recognize that we are doing our very important business within the traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. And if for some reason we do run into emergency, we do have emergency exits over here to my left and to my right. And there's a muster station just out the exit of the main parking lot here out front. As well, if anyone needs to use the washrooms, through the doors, down the hallway and in to the back. I think that's about it. Moving forward, I guess next step, alternate director would be for us to receive delegations. So if you'd like to make a motion, that'd be great. Thank you. Second, all in favor? So first group we're going to invite up is the Hornby Island Community Economic Enhancement Corporation.
It's on. Thanks.
Welcome.
Staff of the CVRD, other citizens. My name is Karen Ross. I'm the Executive Director for the Hornby Island Community Economic Enhancement Corporation. HISEEK is the acronym. We do important work on Hornby Island and often find ourselves acting in a local government role. With all of the work we do, our volunteer board of directors and myself find that we need more capacity than we have to assist in some of the major projects like housing. So we have retained Wellesley Consulting Group, WCG, in Victoria because of their experience and knowledge in these areas. This particular group is made up of former local government and private sector professionals. And I wanted to introduce Ross Birchall, who's with me today and speaking on behalf of HISEEK and his team. Ross actually grew up here in the Valley. He's a friend of my daughter's, coincidentally, and spent a lot of time on Hornby meeting with us and working and identifying solutions. So Ross is going to do our presentation. Thank you.
Good to be back in the Valley at a beautiful time of year. So I'm just going to get my screen up here. There we go. Everyone can hear me okay from here? Great. Good morning. Thanks, Karen, for the introduction. Thank you to all of you and for the opportunity to present today. I'll also start by acknowledging my presence here as a guest today on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. I also wanted to bring acknowledgement of the work that we do in Victoria and Prince George. So that takes place on the unceded territory of the Lekwungen and the Wasanich Nations and the Lheidli First Nation in Prince George. So as Karen mentioned, my name is Ross Birchall, Managing Partner of WCG. We're a management consultancy headquartered in Victoria, as I said, and we're supporting HISEEK in their work. Many of you are aware, but for background's sake, HISEEK is a registered nonprofit community economic development society whose mandate is to implement solutions to economic, social, and environmental issues facing Hornby Island. Since its founding in the late 90s, HISEEK's become a valued, respected, and relied upon community resource for all residents, organizations, and businesses in these key areas. It also boasts a successful track record with external organizations, the CVRD being one of them, of identifying and implementing solutions to unique and complex issues facing the island. I'll share more about our firm's background towards the end of this presentation when I start asking you for things, but there's no surprises, it's all on the agenda. Beautiful day. I'll start with the bad news and move us into the good stuff. So as we all know, we're in the midst of a housing crisis. subsidized housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, seniors housing, all of it. It's there when we scroll our social media feeds, open our newspapers, turn on our radios, our TVs. We hear it on a regular basis. It's widespread and it spares no one. Urban, suburban, rural, and nearly every regional district, local, provincial, and territorial government, as well as the federal government, recognizes the issue. But as we also know, things aren't getting any easier. So let's talk about Hornby. Hornby Island sees a tremendous amount of benefit to its local economy as a result of being such a coveted tourist destination. However, as a community, it faces a number of unique challenges that restrict its ability to attract and retain a consistent workforce, house an aging and/or retiring population segment, and maintain a level of affordability for permanent housing, and also to meet its societal needs currently and into the future. As such, a large portion of the island is either crown land, parkland, ALR, or zoning restricted. Little to no land remains available to satisfy these diverse needs. And as a result, all aspects of the local economy take a hit. So as we discuss solutions, we already recognize that the complex and unique needs of each individual community, not just Hornby Island, do not provide for a one-size-fits-all approach. It just won't work. I'll speak shortly to some conventional methods and also unconventional methods we're looking at to get some quick wins in this area, while also bringing more certainty to costs and identifying market demand in areas like Hornby when considering the size and scope of housing-related projects. I'll acknowledge that work has been done to bring housing to the island, such as the Beulah Creek project. However, even from the moment shovels went in the ground, the number of units is still not enough to meet the requirements of Hornby Island today, and certainly not into the future. There's no inventory for staff in local restaurants, shops, or other businesses to live in, certainly not newcomers or skilled trades that are also needed. And whatever you want to call it, affordable housing, workforce housing, in essence, has to be somewhat affordable in order for the whole thing to work. Unlike most other communities, and if it's the only takeaway from this presentation, this one's it. An increase in housing supply is an urgent, must-have catalyst for the Hornby Island economy. It's the primary reason our team was brought in to assist. It's the primary reason I'm here today in person to stress the critical turning point we're at and to seek your support. I'm not asking for much, we'll get there. But I'll start by giving a bit of background federally and work our way down here. So this past Thursday and Friday, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland reiterated that solutions to these housing issues are often easy to say, but hard to accomplish. And Federal Immigration Minister Mark Miller told reporters that Canada aims to welcome 451,000 new immigrants next year, with that number expected to increase to 500,000 in 2025. While he stated that many of those will be skilled laborers and that these skilled workers are required to build more homes, saying that the housing crisis cannot be solved without the aid of these new immigrants who bring their skills. We must accept the fact that the vast majority of these newcomers will be renters, not homeowners, at least initially. Now, it's not an immigration question or concern because no matter who you are, immigrant, non-immigrant, no matter what walk of life, you would be hard-pressed to find a permanent place to live right now on Hornby. We need to be prepared to create an adequate stock of purpose-built rental dwelling units and units available for purchase as well, including right here. We need to get to work now, not weeks, not months, certainly not years from now. So here's what we're doing. We're applying for funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or FCM, under their Green Municipal Fund for new construction of sustainable, affordable housing. This will, of course, require the initial pre-feasibility, feasibility, and business plan components of the project to be complete and suitable land secured and ready to go. We've identified a couple of parcels of land for this potential development and look forward to completing our more formal land inventory and continuing to explore other options on private land, Crown land, and potential partnership or joint venture opportunities with Comox First Nation and others. These can gradually bring additional units of housing online, but also assist in supporting the local economy and well-being of the community as a whole. So in addition to affordability, accessibility, and stability, HiSeq's criteria and areas of consideration for the proposed development have been identified as follows. To be in harmony with the spirit of Hornby, a low-key development with an environmental footprint as light as possible. To be established in a timely manner, as the need is immediate, not down the road. To remain under the control of the community and key strategic partners. To be established, allowing flexibility in the design and style of dwellings, and to be as inclusive as possible of all ages and socioeconomic brackets. And these key points are what will inform our decision-making and planning efforts as we move forward. Provincially speaking, cabinet ministers were given their marching orders last December and even well before that, with a focus on attainable and affordable housing. Our team has already had great conversations with government officials in several ministries and provincial appointees surrounding the housing issue. And while meaningful work is being done, there are many players at the proverbial table, as I'm sure you're aware. And when do we need that work to start? Now. A current intake of the Provincial Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, or REDIP as its acronym, is open until October 30th. This program allows for soft infrastructure costs for planning activities related to workforce housing, which they define as housing developed to support critical economic opportunities or sectors such as seasonal tourism operators that are unable to fill workforce demands due to a lack of housing. It's almost as though the revised eligibility criteria was written specific for Hornby Island, and we plan to submit an application to assist us in moving this forward. In terms of other opportunities, there is a call for proposals coming up from BC Housing in a month or so for nonprofits, Indigenous governments, and local governments. But applicants have to be ready. That's with the site identified, financing ready to go. You have a plan, you're ready to go, shovels into the ground. But the details aren't exactly clear. But I did want to acknowledge today that we are aware of this opportunity and we'll be keeping an eye on it. Also provincially, UBCM has a complete communities program providing support to local governments and modern Treaty First Nations to enhance their ability to make evidence-based land use planning decisions through assessments of their current community completeness. For the purposes of this,
I'm just going to quickly jump in. I should have made mention of it at the start that you have 10 minutes for your presentation. So if you could wrap things up here in the next minute or two, that'd be great.
Super close. Thank you. For the purposes of this program, complete communities are defined as communities or areas within a community that provide a diversity of housing to meet identified community needs and accommodate people at all stages of life. Our end goal here is effective, sustainable land use through the development of workforce housing, live, work, retail, and trade zones, ultimately supporting the livability of Hornby Island and access or proximity to community services and transportation, making Hornby Island a complete community. Locally, we recently secured funding from Island Coastal Economic Trust to prepare a comprehensive economic development strategy for Hornby Island, which of course touches on multiple sectors. However, the community and local businesses have already been surveyed and consulted to death, so they're pointing repeatedly to the urgent need for housing in order to support the local economy. We'll get right to the asks then. I understand that Director Arbour has had to recuse himself, but I'm sure the rest of the committee, with your combined knowledge and expertise, and certainly hopefully with this added background, we'll be able to find consensus. So what we're hoping for is a letter of support in principle for HiSeq's application to REDIP pertaining to a diversified community development. A letter of support in principle for HiSeq's application to FCM for their infrastructure program pertaining to a diversified community development, and a motion of support for HiSeek's project pertaining to a diversified community development, and a directive for CVRD staff to review and work with HiSeek and WCG, our firm, to support an application for UBCM's Complete Communities program due January 12th, 2024. And before we get there, before you lock in, as I previously shared, I did want to provide a bit of a background of our project team. So specific to this work is a group of experts in economic development, local government, planning and development, and engagement and capacity building. Our combined experiences in local government as city manager, general manager of planning and development, mayor, and in the private sector in planning, ECDev, community engagement and capacity building in both urban and rural municipalities means, quite frankly, we get stuff done and we're ready to go. We've reached out to Comox First Nation, encouraging participation in our upcoming public engagement. We've reached out to the province, we've reached out to the feds, we have funding partners, we have private sector interest, we have Islands Trust support and requests for feedback through their regional planning committee, but we need support from the CVRD in the absence of a true local government on Hornby Island in order to get this across the finish line. Now, I understand your questions will probably be around risk mitigation, staff time, competition with other municipalities. And I can speak to that just by saying that there's lots of money to go around in this fund. And, we understand the impact of all of these on decision making. These other municipalities are also able to apply on their own, and Hornby Island can't without CVRD support. Welcome any questions, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much. Alternate Director, Mike.
Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. That was great and an awesome project overall. You mentioned that HiSeek has achieved and implemented unique and complex solutions. I wonder if you can give me one on Hornby.
Sure. I think the most recent one would be fiber optic. That's probably the most recent one. That's a, pretty comprehensive project and involved you guys. So
exactly. Yeah, no, and that's great. Same for us out on Plateau Road. The other was around staff time. You hit that. What do you anticipate there in terms of recommendation or request number 3?
Yeah, there's there's no avoiding staff time on the CVRD side. That's just simply going to be the way it goes, no matter how you slice it. Our firm is quite comfortable and quite used to, working with funding partners. In this essence, the CVRD would indeed have to be the lead applicant and be responsible for administering grant funds. Now, we're quite happy to do heavy lifting and assist with reporting and, to take as much of the burden off the CVRD as we can. But as I said, HiSeek is not eligible on its own to apply for this, and it's a perfect fit and could probably get us across the finish line. So your consideration is appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a couple of, or one question, I guess, in regards to infrastructure. Obviously, water and sewer are two important items when we start talking about affordable housing. Just curious with regards to water and sewer infrastructure, what needs to be considered here, and has that information been put forward to the CVRD staff for their consideration?
Early days yet. A lot of that work would be part of the work that we would do with these funding programs. Right now we're just wrapping up our land inventory, so we haven't even landed on a site. So what does the water look like? Is there percolability? We don't know that yet until we've confirmed a chunk of land.
Thanks. Mike, another question?
None further, Mr. Chair. I can make a motion that if you wanted one.
Sure.
I move that.
Sorry, before we do that,
okay.
we vote on receipt. Okay. First, I'll get you to make a motion to vote on receipt of the report that's been provided to us, or just vote on receipt.
Okay. Accepted.
All in favor, carried. Now you'd like to put forward a motion?
I move that we provide a letter of support for request number 1 and 2, and a motion and move that we support the HISIC project and for CVRD staff to review and work with HISIC to support an application to UBCM.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just for the committee's information and for the delegation and the public as well. Typically, the Electoral Area Services Committee will receive delegations, hear information, hear what is being asked and the merits of that project or the presentation. And then no specific action is usually taken at a committee meeting, but oftentimes the topic can be referred to staff to just explore a little bit more about what might be required or expected from the CVRD in supporting such an application. And so in this instance, I think that would be advisable to be able to have staff take a look, work with HISIC and understand just what is expected and how it aligns with either CVRD projects and goals, and maybe how it can complement some of the work the CVRD is doing, or possibly compete with some of the other priorities that the CVRD is doing. So it just gives them, the directors, a better sense maybe of how this particular project might fit with some of the work that's already on the existing work plan. So a motion to refer this project and topic to CVRD staff to report back to the EASC would be helpful for us, and then we can come back to a future EASC meeting with our findings.
Is the motion as written okay? Because I think it was just refer to CVRD staff and supporting in principle.
I think a motion to refer this presentation to the CVRD staff would be helpful for us to be able to then work with you and get some more information.
Great.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to the second half, but thank you for the suggestion.
Oh, we're so close.
Move to refer to staff for further review. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your presentation. So vote on the motion then. In regards to referring to staff.
Did we? I think we just did that. Eh?
I thought we had two.
All in favor, I guess.
Yep. I'd second, all carried. All in favor, carried. Thanks. All right, we'll invite the Improving Dyke Road South Park delegation. I think it's Mr. Turner and Mrs. Turner.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for listening to us today, and thank you for serving on the committees that you serve on. We appreciate all the work you do. I live at 26. My name's Monica Turner. My husband, Paul, we live at 2650 Comox Road. We live right across from that little tiny park in the neighborhood. People are really wanting to have a little dock out there, a little way to approach the water. About 40 years ago, we bought the property, and at that time there was a huge cement silo about 40 feet tall across the road from us. There was field sawmill down the road clunking away, and there was a sewage lagoon. So all three of these amenities have disappeared, and it's a lovely residential area now full of birds and children and lots of cars across the road. Over the years, it has become designated as a bird sanctuary, and Ducks Unlimited has bought the property behind us, and Couscousum will soon come to beautify that area and make it accessible for the salmon to spawn in there. At present day, people are often over there at the little park, which has a crazy name, being as it's being named after the other park. People come to put their paddle boards in the water. They come to put their kayaks in and their canoes. They have to scrabble down the bank over the rocks to do that in a dangerous fashion. And there's swimmers who sit on the rocks and also scrabble down. And that's what we do. My husband and I, we still scrabble down over the rocks into the water to swim there. It's a beautiful swimming spot. The water is clear and lovely. So in your package to the directors, you have some photos that I took of the the cars that are there on the little peninsula and the 3 structures that are in the water left over from the days when the cement silo was there. I'm kind of hoping that they're still structurally sound so that a dock could be attached to them. The photos show the 3 structures that are there in the water, the 3 pilings that have been there since the days when Lafarge owned the cement silo and brought their barge up and emptied out the cement powder there in the middle of the night, clunking and groaning. So what we would really like to see there, the neighborhood, my friends on either side of me along the dike there, is a dock, is a ramp that we could get down to the water ourselves to swim, and all these other people that come in their cars and want to get their watercraft down there, a non-powered dinghy dock where people could get access to the water. We'd like to see a safe way for people to get in and out of the water, a safe way for people to launch their crafts into the water, a safe way in and a safe way out. There have been occasions when people have been stranded out there in the bay, and it's not very easy to find your way out of the water there. The mud's deep, thick. If you have to walk out or come off a craft or have had some accident, you can't walk through that mud, but you could swim your way to the dock or drag your craft over there. So a safe in and a safe out. So an improved access and improved egress and improved, ingress into the water is what we're hoping to have. And I'm going to invite my husband to finish off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. First, I'd really like to say how special this is. You go around the world and you see democracy under attack, and what people wouldn't give to have this, where we can discuss and do things together. It's really special. So apropos our non-powered dinghy dock, you have a fantastic asset there. If we had to buy it, it would cost us millions. We've inherited it, and it's underutilized. Now, it's not going to help me across the street to have more traffic, so we're sort of reverse NIMBY this, but it would help everybody. People come from all around to use this thing, from the Comox First Nations, from all of the municipalities. People come and awkwardly launch their boats and try to swim. And I think with very little expenditure, it could be made something even more special. So I ask you to put it on the list, and eventually maybe it'll get done, and we'll call it Ain't the Regional District Great Dock. And thank you for hearing me, and thank you for being here. Something special.
Mr. Turner, before you sit down, just open up to the board or to the committee here if anybody has any questions for you or Mrs. Turner. Maybe Mrs. Turner will get you to come up to the mic. Thanks. Dr. Robert?
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, and thank you for your presentation. So this is actually a really interesting area for the CVRD because obviously there's a number of projects happening along the Dyke Road, including Kuskusam, and we're about to launch on a Green Shore initiative, and some of the properties are involved right there. So in regards to your request to look at the potential for an improvement or a new launch for small boats, I'm wondering if staff would prefer to make a few comments now on how that could potentially fit with our other efforts, or whether we should put forward a motion later on in the agenda to ask for a staff report on that.
Sure. Doug DeMarzo, our General Manager of Community Services, is just back in the office today, so maybe putting him on the spot a little bit, but I think Doug can probably give a sense of work plans and this kind of a concept. So Doug.
Thank you through the chair. The Dyke Road South area where the dinghy dock is being suggested currently has no planned access to the water. We have looked at it in the past in different lights, but there's nothing in the 5-year capital plan through parks in that piece. A lot of the Green Shores work is focused on the Dyke Road North Park and, the confluence in there and hooking to Couscous, and the work with the First Nations, KFN Guardians and their aspirations for salmon spotting and other improvements in that area. So currently we have no direction nor nothing in our capital plan that looks like that. We have looked at it in the past, a simple rock kind of step path going down, but nothing came of that at that time.
Okay, interesting. So it is, from what your comments are, it is basically there is public access to, I guess it would be the Courtney River at that stage. Yeah.
Yeah, there's poor public access, but that's
There is. So
yeah.
so I'll
Higher
defer to
tides.
I'll defer to the area, be a little bit director around parks planning in that area. But all I'll say is I know the Courtney River, with all the improvements that are going to be made around Couscous, it definitely has a lot of recreational value in that area. And I don't see a lot of power boats using that dock, even if it's put in. I remember trying to go up I did go up the Courtney River with my speedboat, but that was not an enjoyable experience. So
No, the hope is that they wouldn't be.
it wouldn't be power boat.
No,
It would be
only for
yeah.
people to launch a kayak or a paddleboard. Those are the things that people are launching now.
Yeah.
And they're scrabbling down the bank. They're, taking their lives in their hands, getting those little crafts into the water.
Sure.
So a dock would make it safe for people, not power, definitely not power.
Yeah, thanks. Anyways, I'm always supportive of analysis around recreational infrastructure. So I'd like to find out more, but I'll pass it on to the other directors for comments or questions.
Very much for your presentation. And I was wondering about the people going down to this dock, the planes and boats that they're using the other arm, right? The one that extends further. So I don't see a conflict. I just wanted a confirmation that was the case.
Yeah, the planes never come close to our side.
Yeah.
They're out by the little sandbars that are out there. No, they're in the main flow of the river. They're not towards that, what we do call it, almost a slough that comes up in front of us.
That's right. And I think this morning I saw that there was no water there. It was just the tide was out and it was.
It's definitely a high water access. It's when the tides are in that it's perfect, and when the tides are out, the dock would probably sit on the sand, on the mud.
Yeah, and I agree. This is a special circumstance that we have in this sort of community overall. The questions I have are mostly around logistics. Like you put an asset in there. Now we want people coming in and off Comox Road. It's already pretty busy, as you know, living on that side of the street. And this morning there was 3 or 4 cars there as well, just parked off to the side, enjoying the location. So I think that, I'd be interested I think we do need assets around there. It would be great, but it also needs to be done in a logical way. I guess I would ask Doug whether we, do you see this kind of thing being added to any of the current initiatives that we have underway in the Courtney River?
Yeah, this time we have no real direction to add it to any of the current initiatives. There's some limitations with parking in that area already. There's high use of birders in the morning, other photographers. It does provide a recreational site, and there are people that use it for those purposes. So I think just because it's not in our work plan doesn't mean it would not be something we could further investigate if it's something that the community sees as a priority for Area B in that area. There's obviously a number of permits and other things that we'd have to be found through putting a dinghy dock in place. And we have to work through those and report back on the feasibility of if it's even possible.
Thank you.
I guess in regards to, I agree with you, Mr. and Mrs. Turner, in regards to it would be nice to see some type of a dock system that allows people to get in and out of the area safely. However, I agree with Director Arbor as well with regards to there are a number of projects being undertaken right now. So to me, I would think if I was going to put forward a motion of some sort later on, I'd probably suggest that maybe after all of the activities that are currently being undertaken right now have like various projects like Couscous, the Green Shore program, some of the other work that's being done in and around that area, that after we've completed that work, then maybe perhaps that would be the time to come back and have staff do an evaluation and see what their thoughts would be in regards to proceeding with some type of a dinghy dock. Understanding, of course, that there's a lot of different jurisdictions that still need to be considered, as Doug has made mention of as well, whether it's federal or provincial or local government or Indigenous as well. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be considered before we turn around and say yes or no or consider a dock. So I guess what I would suggest maybe is that we have staff come back with a report maybe later on with regards to what's been put forward here. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes either until we ticked off a number of boxes that would allow us to turn around and make a decision on whether we would proceed with that.
So we can be assured that you've heard us.
Absolutely. It's been heard loud and clear.
Okay, and we can come back someday.
Have lots of family and friends that have done the same thing as you growing up in and around that area, jumping into the green fountain, if you will. So
Thank you very
remember
much.
those. Thanks very much. So just need a motion to receive delegation. Second, thanks. All in favor, carried. If I could, I'd like to make them. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, and I'll move that following that delegation, that staff comes back with a little report on how this initiative could fit in, as per the chair's remark, into our longer term, midterm, longer term plans, and in relation to the completion of the Green Shore and Couscous initiatives.
Thanks. All in favor? Here. You have a second there? Thanks. On favor, carried.
Mr. Chair, Ton True, I think, is available to provide a quick verbal update on this application. Ton's our manager of planning services. So Ton.
Good morning through that CEO to the chair and the directors. Yeah, this will be a quick update. Staff met up with the delegation and the neighbors after their July delegation. Staff informed the group that staff did receive an application, a non-farm use application for the purpose of bringing fill to the property. We're working with the applicant right now to get a complete application. Their application that was submitted with our acknowledged report needed some fine tuning. We did receive a new version just this last Friday. So staff will be reviewing their application. And our intention is to present this to the Agricultural Advisory Plan Commission in September for comments and send some referrals out to the provincial agrologists too, and then eventually present this to a future EASC meeting.
Thanks, Han. Any questions, comments? Great. So just voting on receipt. Daniel Arbor first. Thank you. On favor, carried. Good. Moving on to the resolution status report. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, if you have any questions on the resolution status report, we can, staff is available to answer you. Any questions on that particular item?
Director Harper, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm just wondering, in light of the item we just received, under item 4, regarding the imported fill at 6721 Farnham Road, and request that the fill be removed and the site be remediated. So what happens to that request in light of the application that's been made? And the item on our standing resolution.
So that the number 4 item there on the resolutions report, that's the motion that was presented and approved July 10th. This as Tom mentioned, this application will be coming to a future EASC following the Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission. So the item will stay alive until it comes then to the next or whichever EASC meeting that the report is ready for. It'll be after September. And in terms of this number 4 item on the resolutions report, we'll conclude it. It won't show up on the next one in September. And the directors will then see the topic.
Got it. So when it says item to be concluded, it's in relation to now we're going to move to consideration of the application. But it doesn't mean that the concern itself is necessarily concluded.
Correct. You just won't see it on this resolutions report going forward because it's then an application through the planning department or whatever the department is that's managing it.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
If there aren't any more, go ahead. Director Mike.
I'll move for receipt.
So we'll vote. Vote on receipt. Thank you, directors. All in favor, carried. Moving on to the Advisory Planning Commission minutes.
Seconded.
Carried. Any comments, questions in regards to the minutes? Not seeing any. We'll vote on receipt. All in favor? Carried. Moving into item number 2, Electoral Area B Development Variance Permit, 1900s Ryan Road East. Thank you. All in favor, carried.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Pollock, Planner 2, who will introduce the staff report on the development variance permit. Stephanie.
Through the acting CAO to the chair and committee members, this is a development variance permit application to reduce the required rear yard setback of an existing accessory building that has been used as a secondary dwelling from 7.5 meters to 1.9 meters. The subject property is located at 1900 Ryan Road East, is approximately 0.29 hectares in size, and is zoned Country Residential 1. The subject building was constructed in 1978 under an issued building permit for the use as a garage. Under the building permit, the siting of this building as proposed was accepted, including the 1.8 meter rear yard setback. Final approval of the building permit, however, was never granted. At some point, the structure was illegally converted to a secondary dwelling. The applicant is now looking to legalize the secondary dwelling use. Planning staff are in support of this development variance permit because its impact on neighboring privacy, noise, and shadowing is likely to be low. Further, it is understood that the 1.9 meter setback will allow sufficient room for future building maintenance. The Area B Advisory Planning Commission considered this application on July 17th, and they support the application. Adjacent owners within a 100-meter radius have been notified, and as of today, staff have received one piece of correspondence which supports the application. The applicant and property owner, Michael Huska, is in attendance today, and I am happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions? Director Arbor?
Thanks, Chair. I was ready to step in case you had an emergency. So yeah, no, that looks pretty good. Thanks for the staff report. And we just saw one. So basically, as I understand it, this is basically some kind of garage structure, something like that. It was converted to secondary dwelling because of our bylaws. Maybe the setbacks don't quite work, or we need to make an adjustment regardless to that building. And then another storage shed is being removed. So if I got all this correctly and there's no public concerns, I'm in favor. Thank you.
Alternate Director?
Just one question. Was the garage the original building? And the subsequent building, one was 1978, one was the second one?
Through the chair to the directors, the building was originally approved as a garage structure in 1978. And that same building was converted at some point without a permit to a dwelling unit. Thank you.
So my understanding is the applicant is here. We give the applicant an opportunity to say a few remarks or comments if you so wish.
Yeah, we decided to try to convert that or bring it up to legal standards. So that's why we're going through this process. We are going to hopefully renovate it and take the wood stove out, add new heat, new windows if we're successful here. And it was done before we had the property, so we didn't know that it was non-conforming. We knew the building was non-conforming, but we didn't know that it needed the setback. So that's why we're here. And also to bring valuable accommodations to the Comox Valley.
Thanks very much. Is there anybody, normally through this process, we invite the public as well, if they have any concerns or issues to come forward. Is there anybody that would like to come forward in regards to expressing any comments or concerns with regards to the application? Not seeing any. I guess we'll move forward with regards to vote on receipt of the report. Yes, somebody put forward a motion. Oh, sorry. So we voted? Okay. Okay. Thanks. So then we're moving to all in favor? Carry.
Move the correspondence and addendum.
Thank you. Second, all carried. Sorry. Now we're voting on receipt of the information. All in favor? Carried.
And move the recommendation that the permit 5B23 be approved. Second.
All in favor? Carried. All right, moving to number 3.
Receive DB 4B23 Curtis Road.
Thank you. On favor, carried.
And Mr. Chair, Cassie Marsh, Planner 2, will be introducing the this report and the next report as well. This is the development variance permit 4B2323. Cassie.
Thank you. Through the chair to the committee members. An application has been received to consider a development variance permit application to the rear yard setback of an existing single detached dwelling in order to accommodate the addition of a second story. The requested variance will be a reduction in the rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 2.35 meters, or approximately 7.7 feet. This lot is zoned Country Residential 1. Lots within the CR1 zone are permitted to construct a single detached dwelling with a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters, or approximately 24.6 feet. The location of the dwelling is pre-existing. It was constructed around 1970 prior to CBRD zoning bylaws. The applicant is proposing to construct a second-story addition to the existing house. While the house would be considered non-conforming as it currently is, with the proposal to construct an addition, the structure must follow the zoning of today or be approved through a variance to be cited with a different setback. The applicant has indicated that the reason for the request for a reduction in the rear yard setback is to build on the existing house, as they do not need or want to tear down or move the home from its existing location. The intent of building setbacks includes to reduce impacts on neighbors related to privacy, shadow, noise, and fire separation, and to ensure that adequate space remains for the maintenance of the structure and to help maintain a consistent neighborhood form and character. Please be advised that all adjacent properties within 100 meters of the subject parcel were notified via mail of the variance request and were given the opportunity to comment prior to the application going forward to the committee meeting today. The CBRD has received 4 items of correspondence, including 1 late item. 2 items are in support of the proposal and 2 are unopposed. The Area B Advisory Planning Commission supported this application. Staff recommend that the development variance application be approved, as it is not likely to alter the rural character of the neighborhood. It should not affect neighbor privacy, and there will be adequate room to maintain the building. The property owners and applicants, Ian and Ann Holm, are in attendance and available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Director Armour?
Yeah, thanks to staff for clear presentation on this one. And it's always good to see when adjacent neighbors show no concerns with something like this, and the whole rationale to me makes sense around utilizing the existing structure and adding on to it. I noticed we did not receive a letter from the neighbor in the back. That would be us. So not seeing any input from the CBRD of concerns, that's also good. So anyways, pretty straightforward, and unless my colleagues have other things that I may have missed, I'll wish them good luck with their project.
Director Leroy?
I was wondering about the slope in the back. I don't know the area, but it rises. What's the current situation right at your property line there?
So that's what the slope.
So the slope of,
Sorry, I'll jump in. We'll invite the applicant to come up and answer any questions now. So if the applicant's here, that's great, thanks.
So you're referring to the slope on the regional land?
Yeah.
It's a fairly gradual slope. Basically down to the edge of the property or within, say, 10 meters, and then it quite level.
And, I noticed there's a bit of a depression, the seepage that comes down there. None of it works its way over to your property in the back line there.
Seepage?
It's a depression that comes down a couple of your neighbors over. And the terrain causes a depression. It's not a gully, but just a depression. But that's where the moisture is coming down. And I'm just wondering about construction right close to the lot line and whether you notice any water there.
Oh, absolutely no water.
Okay.
It's a sand dune.
Yeah.
Basically.
Thanks very
So
much.
I don't know if you're referring to there's an easement to the south for the force main, which will be, I think it'll be disappearing.
Okay.
Within the next couple of years. So, but yeah, it's all sand, no drainage issues or no slope, problems with the slope.
Okay, thanks for that.
Bring to construction. Yeah.
Any additional comments from the applicant? Great, thanks. We also provide an opportunity again for the public to provide any comments or concerns. We'll welcome that opportunity now. If anybody would like to provide any comments or concerns in regards to the applicant's permit. Not seeing any, we'll move forward on vote of receipt of report. We have somebody put forward a motion. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. All right.
Correspondence and addendum.
Thank you. So we'll go through each item, or can we
Move all of it.
move them all? Okay, great. So we have, we're doing receipt here first, right? Yeah. Okay. Vote on receipt. All in favor, carried.
The recommendation that the DB permit 4B23 to reduce a rear yard setback be approved. Second.
All in favor? Carried. Moving to the next item, number 4, Electoral Area C Agricultural Land Reserve non-adhering residential use.
Receipt.
Thank you. We got a second, all in favor.
And again, Cassie Marsh will be introducing this report. So Cassie.
Thank you. Through the chair to the committee members. The CBRD has received an ALR application to provide comments on to the Agricultural Land Commission. An application has been received to consider a non-adhering residential use on ALR land, which will increase the size permitted for the second residence. This lot is zoned rural ALR. There is currently an existing home on the property, a barn, and other farm buildings. As of December 31st, 2021, the Agricultural Land Commission Act and ALR regulations allow each lot within the ALR to have a residential density of 1 house, which may include a secondary suite, and 1 additional dwelling limited to area of 90 square meters. That 90 square meters is measured as the area between the exterior walls, including any attached accessory areas such as garages. The owners are applying for the non-adhering residential use to increase the floor area from the permitted 90 square meters to 121 square meters, which is an increase of 31 square meters or approximately 334 square feet. The application states that the rationale for this extra space is not only to accommodate 2 of the 4 owners, but also to have an extra room and bathroom to host volunteer farm help. The land is farmed for hay with a 0.12 hectare orchard. The new owners have also begun development of a 0.4 hectare vegetable farm while they continue to farm for hay. The Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission received and supported this application, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Food were referred the application and provided their support. With non-adhering residential use applications, the CVRD board can receive the application and forward to the commission without comment, or receive the application and provide comments and recommendations with the application for the commission to consider, or refuse the application. Based on its consistency with the agricultural areas policies of the official community plan, staff recommends the application be supported and comments be forwarded to the commission. The applicant, Judy Thomas, is in attendance on Zoom and is available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I have to say, reading the report, the location seems to make sense to me. And previous, as it says, previously the suburb area and near the cluster of infrastructure. Would also note that this went to the APC and their remarks were pretty clear around the potential for this to help build out the farm and secure people that can help at the farm as well. So realizing that the ultimate decision rests with the ALC, I don't have a problem forwarding it to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we heard this at the APC and are in support of this proposal application.
So again, we're just voting on receipt of report. So did you have any questions for staff or alternate director? Or to our friend Judy Thomas?
This is this time, thanks.
Great. So we're voting on receipt of report. All in favor? Carried. So now we have a recommendation. We have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, carried. Oh, sorry, Judy, you're on mute. If there's anything that you wanted to put forward. There you go, Judy.
So the Agricultural Land Commission will get all your materials when they get it, so that they can see that the Comox Valley Regional District is essentially in favor of it.
That is correct, Judy.
Okay, good, very good. Next
All
stage.
right. There you go. Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, moving into item number 5. Application for site-specific exemption to floodplain management bylaw unaddressed lot along Kilmarnock Drive. Jody? Oh, sorry, motion to receive? Okay. There we go. Joe.
Jody McLean, our senior planner, will introduce this staff report and the next staff report. So Jody.
Hello, thank you. Lisa, if you can flip to page 8, this will show the subject property we're dealing with. Mr. Chair and directors, as you can see, this is a coastal lot located between Royston and Union Bay. The floodplain management bylaw requires coastal lots have an engineer use methodologies that account for sea level rise when determining flood construction levels and floodplain setbacks. This map here illustrates generally the expected flood extents for this neighborhood. It's a panhandle lot, and the only area landward of those flood extents would be the panhandle driveway. So on page 7, Lisa, if you can flip to there, you can see what the applicant, together with his engineer and biologist, are proposing. A house no closer than 15 meters from the present natural boundary, the shoreline, protected from the rising flood extents by elevating the land behind a rock wall, which would be about 7 to 8 meters behind the present shoreline. Mr. Chair, staff is recommending approval of the application. As stated in the bylaw and the Local Government Act, this will require the reports to be registered on title to make, for the sake of the future owners, to maintain those works and also indemnify the CVRD in the event that the works are not maintained or fail and damage is caused by flooding or erosion in the future. Oh, also, I should mention the applicant, Brandon Murray, is online here too.
Director Harvey, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. That's a nice section of our communities there with the interlocking properties. So with this one, generally, this is aligned with our prior decisions around floodplain exemptions and putting the onus on the engineer report. So I appreciate all the work that's been done to date and acknowledging that building on the waterfront is getting more and more difficult with these types of projects. I just have a question to staff. If any lands was applied in regards to the proposed rock wall, I know that we have Robin Holmes come and present pretty often to us around Green Shore initiatives and moving away from hard infrastructure builds. So I'm just wondering, even though we seek indemnity and the owner take charge of all that, whether those considerations were given as an appropriate measure compared to alternatives for that particular section of coastline.
Yeah, I can speak to some of the rationale for that rock wall is that it's there for the protection of scour from incoming waves. And it's needed to keep the soils back or retain those soils behind or landward of the encroaching shoreline. So that's the rationale for it. And it does involve some restoration or remediation of restoring that backshore area to with some plantings that were recommended by the professional environmentalists.
Okay, thanks. I thought I would just ask, and we'll keep monitoring our Green Shore parallel projects elsewhere and along the coast of BC. And that was my only question. And if staff and engineers agreed that that's the best solution, I won't stand in the way, that's for sure. Thank you.
Are there any comments from the applicant that they would like to provide?
No.
Thank you. So we're voting on receive report. All in favor? Carried. Then there's some recommendations as well.
The recommendation.
Thank you. Carried. All in favor? Recommendations? Great. Item number 6.
Proceed.
Carried.
And again, Jody McLean will be introducing the staff report on the rezoning application. Jody.
Thank you. And Lisa, if you can flip to page 12. Mr. Chair and directors, just to refresh the memory of this committee. So back in 2006, the regional district received a rezoning application for this property for it to be subdivided and developed. And that culminated with the signing of what you see here, this Saratoga Beach Estates Master Development Agreement in 2011. That's 14 hectares on a large 143 lot strata subdivision with its own on-site sewage system. And the condition of that zone is the implementation of the Master Development Agreement, which requires the sewage system to be designed to be expandable so that houses in the community could connect if the CVRD created a local service area there. In 2017, 2018, the Master Development Agreement was reviewed with the regional district and the owners renegotiating the terms and conditions, but those revisions were not adopted. And instead, the owners pursued a new alternative. Page 20, Lisa, will show what brings us to today. So last year, the CVRD staff received a new rezoning application that proposes this larger subdivision and development project. It's 432 lots over 36 hectares. And of course, this level of residential density requires servicing from a community sewage system, which the owners are prepared to construct located on their land. But they're requesting that the CVRD take ownership and operate it as a local service area. Of note, a major difference between the existing arrangement and the proposed is the new proposal would use an ocean outfall for disposing of the treated water. The existing Master Development Agreement specifies the use of an on-site disposal field. The applicants are prepared to construct the ocean outfall, but size it larger than what is needed to accommodate the proposed development for the purposes of enabling outside development to connect to this system. And the amount that could be accommodated would depend on the expandability of the treatment plant. For the provision of water at 432 lots, the proposed development would amount to an estimated 55% increase in connections to the Black Creek Oyster Bay water system. With new capacity being added to that system now, staff is monitoring the supply to ensure servicing commitments can fulfill the area's development potential, including this proposal here. So what you see here is the applicant's conceptual design for how 432 lots would express itself in this space. It includes connecting Oyster River Way to Regent Road and McCleary Avenue, 5% parkland dedication, generally around that fairway pond. Individual lots ranging from 275 square meters to 900 square meters. That's about 0.07 acres to quarter-acre lots. Fee simple subdivision using rural road standards, which means use of ditches and no sidewalks or curbing, except for that purple area in the corner that's intended for a strata subdivision. Housing would be in the form of 432 single detached dwellings with potential for an additional 112 secondary dwellings or suites, and a sewage treatment plant located in that bottom left corner there. So to process this application, we must again renegotiate the terms and conditions of the agreements. The applicants are proposing that the existing master development agreement be canceled and replaced with a new phased development agreement. There is a difference between a phased development agreement and a master development agreement. The master development agreement, it really is just a covenant on title that lists the terms and conditions that must be fulfilled in order to enable the development potential that's listed in the zone. It includes amenities to be provided and standards that must be met. They're not otherwise covered by other CVRD bylaws. And it keeps the zoning and servicing bylaws separate from the covenant. The phased development agreement merges all that together into one document. The bylaws are part of the covenant. It creates security for the developer that once adopted, the zoning or in servicing standards cannot be changed without their consent for the duration of the agreement. Phased development agreements can only be valid for up to a maximum of 20 years, whereas master development agreements, they sit on title forever until both parties agree to discharge. Phased development agreements are also more onerous undertakings. They are reviewed by the province, to whom we must demonstrate informed decision-making based on business case, like the financial impact of the proposal, a risk assessment, adequate public consultation, and overall public benefit to the community. So, Mr. Chair, where we're at with this is that we have a development zone on that lot with a master development agreement on title that was signed by both the owners and the regional district. Through this rezoning application, the owners are asking to change that agreement and that zone to something in line with what you see here in your Appendix A of your package. So for us to commit further resources to this, staff needs authorization from the board to proceed with negotiations on a new agreement and bylaw preparation. And also to involve external agencies to ensure that their interests are known and addressed in that. Mr. Chair, this will be a long process involving new local service area. If we proceed, staff will provide the board with status updates, and eventually to be finalized, it would need to enter into an amendment process with bylaw readings and a public hearing. The owner is an agent. Marshall Goosen, Gene Reimer, and Kevin Brooks are on Zoom and can also speak to this proposal. Thank you.
Director.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks to staff and the applicants for bringing this forward. I mean, this is obviously the first brush at this in terms of having a second look at what pre-existed before. There's some good things in there, and there's some things that could be concerns. So I'll start with the good things. I think you know, the opportunity obviously for our settlement nodes to build out infrastructure that's would benefit the community for long term, i.e. a switch system or better connectivity between neighborhoods. That's a good thing. On the con side, I have a few things definitely to raise before considering whether to send this to referral. Overall, it's not as much the density as the layout. You know, you've heard, this table has heard me talk a lot around the future of Union Bay Estates and trying to arrive at a place where we are densifying and moving away from single family residential, which have more impact on the land base, costs more in infrastructure over time, and generally don't follow as well with the smart growth principles. I would note this proposal would basically fill out the space, and I didn't see a lot of green space. I know with Union Bay Estates we're reaching for a high percentage. So in terms of the amenity package, I would expect something that resembles at least as a minimum BART, the kind of agreements we made with Union Bay Estates, and I wasn't sure that was the case in this proposal. I would also note that this proposed development goes through major, not major, but I can say major because I don't know for sure, but I know there's a salmon creek and one of the major creek habitats running right through those core properties. So I would have questions around that as well. So on first brush, I'm not sure. I'm open to hear the other directors. I would have liked to see something that's more densified and moves away from single residential homes. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks, Chair.
Any questions, alternate director?
Yes. I was interested if the applicant, I didn't see anything in the reporting about what appeared to be in the master plan agreement to be a large wet area that now is in the new, and I realize it's still early, but in the new proposed phase development map, it's a lot narrower. I'm wondering what they're planning to do with that water.
Jody, is that a question you're able to answer, or do you want to have the applicant answer that? All right, we'll invite the applicant to come forward. I think I should be on. It's Marshall Creason. Marshall Goosen, we're just trying to get through some technical issues here with regards to trying to get your video and your mic on.
Can you hear me there?
Yep, we got your mic. Thanks.
Okay. I was expecting Kevin Brooks to speak to your questions there. But I think, like you mentioned, it's in the initial stages of trying to figure out how to work best with the water on the land? I believe that was the question, how we plan to work with the area water. Is that right?
Thank you. That's correct. I mean, I see that some of the dedication to park for the RD is along that area, but it is smaller than the master agreement mapping of this area. Now, you've identified area 2 on the map that is, it doesn't look like you plan to have any residential development along that road, but I'm just trying to interpret the building blocks of this phase agreement.
Yeah, I think the water, you know, and the parks, those are items that we're working together with the district on, or in the discussions, trying to get an understanding of how that worked. That master development agreement was definitely on a lot smaller portion, so proportionately it looks smaller. I think percentage wise it is less percentage wise than what was proposed in the master development agreement, but that also had areas of in-ground sewer distribution that would look like green spaces as well.
Any other questions? Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, if we start sending it to referral and the rest of it, means that this committee is confident enough in the new concept. And on the pro side, I like the move to phase development. On the con side, I can't get over the layout and some of the comments as well that Dr. Leroy made and that I brought her as well in relation to the Greek habitat and the rest of that. So we've also heard a lot on another file from the community around the desire to see a local area plan developed for the Saratoga area. So would staff be able to give this committee a few comments on how those two initiatives may or may not currently dovetail into each other?
Through the chair to Director Arbor. So the local area plan for the Saratoga is not on the work plan for 2023. Staff is right now is focusing on their hazard management in this area. Where we have received information on this area regards to the hazards in regards to flooding. Staff is looking at that and reviewing that information before we dive into working on a local area plan for Saratoga.
Yeah, thanks. I'm leaning on not voting for referral to external agencies. I think this is still, it's a big shift in terms of the layout. I truly don't like the single family home orientation of the development in an area that is really centered to the entire Saratoga Black Creek community. I think there's a local area plan could inform the kind of layout that the community would like to see in the area. And so I'm just not sure how good of a reception we would necessarily get around this particular plan. So question to staff, if this was indeed declined for today, what sort of next steps could we work with the developer to look at reconsideration of the existing master development agreement and finding a path forward? And could that look like engaging more formally in the local area plan, which has been raised many times, to try to get that exercise complete so that there's more certainty for developers and the private sector who look to invest in the Saratoga area?
Thanks. If the application is refused at this stage, the owners could work on an alternative and they can resubmit something substantially different. Otherwise, they'd have to wait 1 year in order to submit a reapplication, something that's very similar. It's unlikely that the local area plan would be adopted within the next year, so it would be a sufficient time.
Jody, I wonder if you could also speak to option number 2 in the report that says, ask the applicant to provide additional information prior to external agency referral per the CVRD's development approval information area bylaw. In light of the specific comments from Director Arbor around things like single family density, single family dwelling and configuration of that. Does that fundamentally change the application, or would that be part of the discussion with the applicant rather than option 3, which is denying the application at this stage?
Sure. Yeah. Option 2. So if the committee has specific items they'd like to see more information on, such as rainwater management, housing forms and characters, layouts, park plans, you can request that at this stage right now, and we can report back with what we have received from the applicant with that, and so you can reconsider this in light of that new information.
Thanks, Jody. So as I see it, there are those 3 options. 1 is to proceed with the recommendation. 2 is to ask for that additional information and consideration between the applicant and the CVRD. And we would then come back to a future EASC meeting with some of those findings. Or thirdly would be to deny the application to rezone the properties.
The alternate director.
I noticed that, it seems based on what you said, Jody, that it's in our interest to go the phased development approach because it gives us more leverage. One of the tenets you had mentioned as well is that it goes to the province for the applicant to prove community benefit. Those are all attributes that are good, especially for an area that's seeing a lot of development and change. So I think that given the understanding of how the water moves in that area, it would be good to see a little bit more work on how parkland can be used. The dedicated parkland area can be used to manage that water. There's an opportunity for some innovation there.
So was that a question or?
No, I think I was just commenting about the option of recommendation number 2, which is to ask for additional information, a little bit more detail around how the land is to be used there.
I had a question or 2 myself in regards to again, just further understanding the regional growth strategy and the growth nodes in and around the area, whether or not this falls in line with what's currently in the RGS. If there's a staff can maybe just answer that or just clarify that matter for me.
Sorry, I missed it. You were referring to how the regional growth strategy directs this area to be developed. Yeah. Okay. This is one of the regional growth strategy to identify some core settlement areas where 90% of development is to be located, meaning the rest of the areas, rural areas, are to be lower density, lower growth nodes, lower area. So this is where we want to see development, and in this particular growth node is meant to be has an objective or commentary that it'd be for complete communities of places where people can work there, can live there, can recreate there. And yeah, and that's based on the levels are based on the servicing, how much we can actually accommodate based on sewer and water. And so with this development, they'd be bringing in sewer to this area. So that would enable further development, further the goals of that regional growth strategy.
And an additional question I had for you was in regards to, again, just looking at the language with regards to sewage. It says the CVRD takes over the system. This oversizing would allow additional flows from outside the development project to connect to the outfall. When we say would allow additional flows, what exactly is that? Is that just like for houses that are immediately adjacent to the development property? Or are we looking at a more broader, bigger area where folks could tap into that sewage?
Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, I think can touch on some of the pieces around the community sewer.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks through the CEO and to the chair. The surrounding community in this area has an identified need for improved sewage treatment. So similar to the south, where we're working hard to resolve failing septic system issues and provide community services, this area would also benefit from a similar kind of project, right? So it's an area with fairly small lots that already exist, some fairly high density, and some failing septic systems. So it's a community that's in much the same situation. So by the developer oversizing the outfall and providing for that extra capacity, there might be an opportunity in the future to bring on the rest of the community onto sewer treatment.
So if I could follow up, then I guess like I said, I guess I was just trying to understand what the word additional flows meant. Like, is that like 50 houses? Is it 500 homes? If there's additional growth in the area, can they tap into the system as well?
Yeah, I think that's the idea, is that the additional capacity would be adequate to provide a community sewer system for that area. So, you know, it's hard to nail down exactly the number of homes, but it would be significant and it would provide a really good long-term solution for that community.
Director.
Yeah, thanks. And while Mark is here, I think I agree with the chair. Really having a good sense on what the overall infrastructure plan looks like is really important. I think that when we did when the CVRD entered into the agreement with Union Bay Estates a number of years ago, 15, 20 years ago, maybe there was a theoretical understanding of how things may unfold, but I think the community continues to feel like that infrastructure plan was not solidly in place, and we've been playing catch up ever since, and it's been a pretty hard road, and we've been lucky in terms of the partnerships that we've been able to develop, for example, with Comox First Nation, but I think it would help the case to have some refined understanding of the viability of that community sewage system. If it's going to lead to another situation where the development of 500 homes to make the sewage system viable to add the adjacent community ends up costing, $4,000 per home, the future generation of elected officials will look at us and say, well, that was not well thought through. So even though there's a potential, as I said earlier, for a really good partnership and advancing the goal, I think I think those are the questions that we could expect. That's why I'm hesitant to bring this forward for referrals into the community, because I think those questions will be raised fairly quickly in the community. But yeah, there's a list of pros as well. So I'm still listening and trying to consider the best step forward. I think the option 2 is pretty good. I mean, for me, it's substantive changes I would like to see. But I'm open if staff comes back and works with the applicant to capture the comments from today and see where we can land. I'm not going to close the door at this stage either.
Any other comments or questions? I know we have, is it Marshall Goosen online? Was there any other comments that you wanted to put forward?
No, I don't know if
There we go.
I don't know if I have just so many comments other than I think you know, trying to get this understood and get it to a point where we can start you know, building those needed residential places is kind of our goal. So sooner we can get there, the better.
Any other comments or questions from the alternate director or director?
Just a comment that I agree with the applicant, you know, that the sooner we can get there, the better. But I also agree with Director Harper about the need to have a good foundation as we head out on this sort of multi-year plan. And I like the idea that it is phased too, so I don't want to lose that option. And so I'm hoping that the applicant can dig a little deeper into a couple of the comments we made.
Thanks. So with there not being any more questions or comments, do we want to vote on receipt of the report? All in favor? Carried. Then we have some recommendations as well with options or next steps. Alternate Director Mike.
Sorry, well, one recommendation is that the applicant get a biologist to review the water in the area. And it's currently mapped on the master agreement as extending into what is Oyster Parkway now. Can we use that and the park amenity to better utilize park space? So that's the recommendation I have.
I think if I can, I think I heard interest in option 2 and looking for some more information and analysis from the applicant. And I also made a few other notes on some of the comments that were made, some of the themes that I heard around housing typology, density, rainwater management, and green space and parkland, and community sewer. So I heard those 3 themes, and I'm looking to staff to see if they heard any other themes, or directors if you heard any other themes. And if there was interest in characterizing a referral to staff to work with the applicant around getting more information on these themes, then that might be a direction that the committee wants to proceed with.
Director Harper?
Yeah, thanks. I think James did a good job of summarizing our comments. There is one that we haven't discussed that is also top of mind, and it's not just the water on the ground, but the water that will feed those homes. So there were some comments in the report, and we are well aware at this table of the challenges of the Black Creek Oyster Bay water system over the last number of years. So there's definitely assumptions built in when we talk about a 55% increase in water pull from the system. I don't know if I would like to see more fleshed out, and maybe that's not as much on the side of the developer as it is on our side to really flesh out whether that kind of infrastructure planning would work in relation to what we know about the state of our BCOB water system and water supply. So I would just add that one to the list. And if Mark or the rest of the engineering team want to provide a couple additional comments, I mean, they did a comment in the report, but if they want to comment more today, that's also welcome for me.
Yeah, I see Tom's got his light on, and John.
To the chair and directors, Director Arbor did mention about the LEP. If there's going to be any work done coming forward. So if the directors wants staff to look into that too, that is something that we can flag as something for this project.
Thanks, Chair. I can move option 2, which is to ask the applicant to provide additional information, and we have the list that James will be able to share with the applicant prior to external agency referral for the CVRD's development approval information area bylaw.
Alternate director seconded. All in favor? Oh, sorry, we got one more comment from Director Arbor.
Yeah, prior to voting, I just want to say, I know this is obviously going to be a big piece this term if this goes forward and returns here. And from my perspective, this is a key property for the Saratoga area. It's located right next to the school. It's central. It's really a piece of property that could make the entire community work better or work horribly, depending on how we manage this file. So I just thought I'd provide those comments that I take the opportunity very earnestly.
Thanks. So vote on recommendation or options here. Well, we're voting on number 2 on, I'm presuming. Yeah. All in favor? Carried. So we're doing development permit areas review. Thank you. Have a second. Thank you. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Dylan Thiessen and Robin Holmes are both present for this staff report presentation. So I'm not sure who's leading it. Dylan, looks like you're leading. Dylan.
Thank you very much, James. Through the acting CAO to the directors and the chair. On July 25th, 2023, the board adopted amending bylaws to the zoning bylaw and official community plan to update select development permit areas. Staff are here today to bring forward amendments to several procedural bylaws to ensure consistency with these recent updates. The bylaws include the planning procedures and fees bylaw, development permit delegation bylaw, bylaw adjudication ticketing bylaw, and municipal ticket information bylaw. Importantly, the 2 ticketing bylaws were included to ensure that our bylaw enforcement officers now have the ability to ticket DP related offenses. You'll see in the various appendices to the staff report that these amendments are fairly minor and short in nature, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Not seeing any questions, then we'll vote on receipt of the report. All in favor? Carry.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. All in favor on the recommendation? Carry. Number 8. Ocho, Town of Comox referral. Want to take a? Okay, do we want to move through this item and then go, or do you want to take an immediate break? Oh, apparently lunch is here, so let's take a 15-minute break, have a little snack, and then we'll come back to work. Thanks. All right, we'll start up on item number 8. Can I get somebody put forward a motion? Thank you.
And Dylan Thiessen, our policy and planning analyst, will be introducing the staff report regarding the town of Comox referral at Hector and Aspen Roads. Dylan.
Thank you very much. Through the acting CAO to the chair and committee members, the CVRD has received a referral from the town of Comox for a proposed zoning bylaw and official community plan amendment. The application, if approved in its current form by town council, would permit the development of up to 736 residential units, mostly in the form of apartments, and approximately 2,000 square meters of commercial floor area. The subject properties for the proposal, located at 2077 Hector Road and 941 Aspen Road, are located adjacent to several properties in Electoral Area B. The regional growth strategy indicates that this kind of growth should be concentrated within municipal areas, but in ways that do not detract from compact growth options. The report that you have in front of you, which staff recommend be forwarded to the town, outlines concerns that staff have and have heard from members of the public, including concerns around transportation, landscaping and buffering, rainwater management, the proposal's potential impact on the area's ecosystem and urban tree canopy, and the possibility of the proposal detracting from more compact growth options. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So it's actually nice to see this report. I found a lot that I agreed with, especially in regards with the specific comments, and realizing that first of all, it's nice that town of Comox sent us the referral, and I also understand there's been a lot of questions in the community around this. So I just want to go through a couple of the specific comments that have really resonated. I mean, in context, it talks about the whole reality of greenfield versus infill, and there I agree that it's true that municipalities tend to fill out their boundaries, but this one is quite outside the existing commercial core, so it's really continues to enhance that Lancaster Park area. On the plus side, it is on the transit axis and close to school and high school. So that's on the benefit side. But as our chair talked about early in the term at strategic planning, you do wonder what happens to the greenbelt concept as well, and the protection of rural areas around, and preserving that interface between more natural rural kind of spaces that the valley is used to, versus just building everywhere, in this case with fairly high density. And on the housing side, when I was reviewing the proposal for those developments, it wasn't fully clear in regards to how it will help fill our regional needs assessment. And I'm not sure that the town of Comox has similar targets, but similar means of ensuring that developments like that have a high proportion of affordable housing built into them. I know that the city of Corning has put higher requirements for that. Landscaping, that was a good paragraph. Transportation, we touched on, and rainwater management. Sorry, I'm just going through them. Ecosystem management. No, that's my main comments. But basically, everything in the report I agree with, and I think it'd be good to send it back as feedback to the town of Comox. Thanks, Chair.
Alternate Director, any comments?
I was interested in the impact on traffic. Where are all these people going to be moving through? And the flow, I see that's one of the recommendations too, is to do an impact assessment on transportation. Well, that's the only comment I had.
Thanks. Again, from a number of folks that I've spoken to over the last little while in regards to this particular item is again, that green space. And I think Director Arbor made mention of it as well as making sure. I think the CVRD to a certain degree with all of our municipal partners needs to kind of really have a look at when we are annexing property or maintaining that rural atmosphere between the various areas and municipalities, that some type of a green space be maintained, especially when we start looking at some of these areas that have been there for a long time. And now all of a sudden, you know, the ability for animals such as bears or cougars or birds or whatever to be able to continue to flourish in those areas or be able to meander through those corridors is maintained. And then of course the concerns with regards to traffic again is a very concerning, especially when we start looking at going from Atchison Road and Hector and again going through down to Indian's Way and the concern for all those households that have small children and stuff that, you know, play on those roads and in those areas. And then all of a sudden we got, you know, 5,000, 10,000 cars a day going through that neighborhood. How are we addressing that? So I know a lot of the citizens that I've spoken with in and around that area would prefer to not have that road go down to Indian's Way and just to leave it flowing along Lyric. So those are just some of my comments and thoughts there. Thanks. So sorry, alternate director Mike, did you have it? No? Okay. So I guess we're voting on receipt of report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Then we have recommendation number 1.
Sorry, Director Arbor, I missed that.
I'm just, I think we just voted on receipt, did we?
Yeah.
So I'm just moving recommendation 1 that the staff report as well as public correspondence received, I imagine from residents of area B, be provided to the town of Comox in response to their referral about the proposed mixed-use multi-residential development at 2077 Hector Road and 941 Aspen Road.
I see, thanks. Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to recommendation number 2, that town of Comox require the applicant to provide a new transportation impact assessment for the proposed multifamily development proposed at 2077 Hector Road and 941 Aspen Road that accounts for the surrounding neighborhood and transportation network in Electoral Area B. Second. Thanks. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Number 9.
Seconded.
Thank you.
And Dylan Thiessen will be introducing the staff report also. Dylan.
Thank you again through the acting CAO to the chair and directors. In February of this year, you'll remember that the board authorized staff to submit a grant application to UBCM's Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Action in the amount of $1.13 million to undertake the construction of the Dyke Road Green Shores demonstration project. As a quick reminder, project partners include Comox Guardian Watchmen, Stewardship Center of BC, Guardians of Mid-Island Estuaries and Pacific Salmon Foundation, with technical support provided by Project Watershed, Northwest Hydraulics Consulting, and HAPA Collaborative. The project aims to increase the site's coastal resilience and minimize the risk to flooding through the removal of hard armoring, removal of invasive species, habitat restoration, and shoreline stabilization. Staff are here today with an important update on the project, which is that at the end of June, we received notice of our grant's success and approval. Staff are in the process of finalizing the design with our project partners, completing construction drawings, and working to get permits in place for the construction window of summer of 2024. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to staff, and that's definitely cause for celebration to see this funding come through for alternate director LaRock and Chair Hardy. There's at least a 3-year history on that project when we first started really looking at doing coastal floodplain mapping and in anticipation of sea rise level. And then we ended up doing a number of sessions with experts and community members around the different means by which we can adapt to sea level rise, exploring all the different avenues to be resilient. And then we identifying this particular project as hopefully a first in many that we will do. And part of the appeal with this project was right away it would test the multi-jurisdictional aspect of what we're dealing with, between being right next to Comox First Nation Reserve Land, between the Ministry of Transportation, the municipalities and the areas and the ties to Kuskusam. So that's why this project was put forward and we pursued grant, and it sounds like we'll be able to move forward and do the work. So I really want to thank the staff team that's worked on that for quite a few years to get us to this point, and hopefully the first of others to come in other areas of the regional district.
I echo that's congratulations. You said it was going to start in 2024. I also noticed that it said it can be completed by 2025. So that's just one year, basically one season to get it all done. We're looking forward to it.
Director.
Thanks. I was thinking, last Saturday or Saturday before, I was talking to some of the folks at Denman Island Conservancy around invasive species management, and sadly I can't remember the name of that species right along the shoreline. It's been invading quite heavily, but they were doing hand picks quite effectively along the Denman shore. And then they told me a story that around the Courtney area, we actually brought excavators to take it out. I don't know if you have background on that, but I just want some reassurance that maybe as plans for invasive species management are brought forward, if you can bring them or give us a heads up on what kind of methods will be used. Maybe our committee would may be interested in weighing in, because I know it was quite controversial for them. Thank you.
Voting on receipt. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item number 10, the Union Bay Community Hall playground replacements. Thank you. Second by Inspector.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Brian Allert is here to introduce the staff report on the Union Bay Community Hall playground replacement project. So Brian, over to you.
Through the acting CEO to the chair and the directors. So this is a follow-up to the presentation by the Union Bay Community Club last month here before the committee. And they came seeking some funding to update their playground equipment. And I think if you have a look at that slide there on the screen, you can see that the need is obvious, but the funding to replace the equipment is maybe not so clear. So while the project appears to be a good fit for the Community Works Fund, the current contract is fully allocated with the exception of Denman and Hornby, where we have about 53,000 remaining there. So staff are recommending that 25,000 of these funds be granted to the community club under the community hall function to begin planning and design work on the new playground equipment and some trail updates to the Jones Road that is used to access the back of the property there. Now, the request for the additional 175,000 is something that we can consider during the next budget phase. By that time, we're thinking that there'll be a new contract in place for Community Works funds. So there might be an opportunity to fund it that way. There are a couple of other options for the committee to consider. We could look at doing the full funding request next January during the budget process. And we could also consider using the electoral area future expenditure reserve funds, which is for parks and greenways. That fund has just over $400,000. Yep.
Director Arbor, any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Before I comment further, I just want clarification whether I caught that properly in your presentation. Are you saying that the 53,000, because with Community Works for over 20 years, we've been very diligent at separating the allocations for Hornby and Denman and the Bainstown portion. So is that 53,000, did you say it's available in the Hornby Denman portion? Or it's in the Bainstown portion? Maybe that's a question to Kevin Duville.
Thank you through the chair to Director Arbor. So yes, I just want to kind of support that. So yes, right now, Bainstown portion of Area A has fully allocated its community works funds under this current contract. So that $53,000 that Brian mentioned is the allocation specifically for Denman and Hornby Islands. Area C also does have some funding remaining, but staff will be bringing back a fulsome report on the status of community works funds to this committee in early fall.
Okay, thanks. I'm not disappointed, but surprised that staff would bring a recommendation that changes that practice of really keeping those funds for where they belong. I think we ran into that when there was a suggestions to use Union Bay funds to community works funds to support projects on Denman. And that was 6 months ago. So I think the residents in my area see their communities as defined communities, and they are very aware of the per capita allocation policy or in practice policy of the CVRD for a number of years. So I would be very reluctant to move some of those funds over, especially when there's high needs on Hornby and Denman. For example, we'll have a report on the boat ramp soon, where that 53,000 could definitely be used on Hornby Island. So that means that, yeah, that changes. I didn't read the report that way, so I need to change my tack a little bit. So that this makes this project quite challenging, which is unfortunate. So I would have to request maybe if my colleagues here are willing to look at the Park Service for an allocation. I don't think we can make a $200,000 allocation. I think it'd be great to work with the groups to try to leverage, as we often do, some of our funding to try to attract additional funding. What I liked about the 50,000 allocation is that was allowing us to start doing some of the planning and design work. And so I was counting, I thought it was in the Bainstown portion when I read the report. So I was counting on that we could easily approve that today, but I'm wondering if I could find support to use the park function to get that 50,000 to start on the works there. So I'll pass it to my colleagues to see if they're interested in looking at that through the Park Service.
Thanks. Did you want to comment on that? On that ability to do so?
Yeah, maybe just get some clarity from either Brian or from Kevin. The way the recommendation is structured is that there will be $25,000 made available in 2023 to support the design of a new playground. And then the future consideration of that additional $175,000 grant would be put forward to part of the next year's budgeting process. So the actual financial commitment being looked for today would be that $25,000. And I'm seeing a nod from Brian. And then maybe Kevin, the opportunity to fund that from the Park Service as opposed to from the Community Works, that's okay.
Through the chair to the director. So yes, one of the alternatives we outlined on page 2 under financial factors is if the directors were uncomfortable with the community work fund allocation, we could look at drawing some dollars out of the Park Services future expenditure reserve. We noted in that report that at the end of 2023, that particular reserve will have an anticipated balance of about 419. So 25,000 is certainly doable to get the ball rolling, and then look at bringing back, the balance once that work is undertaken, and look at that as part of 2024 financial planning.
if the directors are okay today with that, that commitment for the 25,000 from the Park Service.
Correct.
Alternate Director LeBron.
Thank you very much. Tough to follow the moving parts there on the various funds. I think I have it on a little bit more practical level though. Ryan, is there any safety considerations on the current?
Yes.
Current.
Yes,
playground?
there is, yeah.
So
They've
there's-
actually closed down that.
Okay, so there's
playground
imminent
equipment.
safety issues. And it's blocked off. And I heard you say the 25,000 was for planning and design. So we're not actually fixing anything in the first year.
Working towards the new equipment.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. And to bring alternate director Larocque a little more up to speed. So this project is not in our parks. So it's the Union Bay Community Club. It's on their lands. However, where the campground is located will be through the Union Bay Estates Development. We are obtaining a range of parklands and all going up Hart Creek, Wash Creek. This will be the trailhead, so to speak, and where the playground is, and it's also where the community hall is. So it's a third-party contribution. So in terms of safety, we're not liable as the CBRD. Just to clarify that, we're just trying to do a good thing in the community and support them with this playground replacement. It's the same model we use in Fanny Bay successfully, and with that one, we did dedicate community works funds from my area to actually fund the full project. If the directors are amenable to a 25,000 contribution. So when we talk about the Park Service, the difference here is the community works might be more tied to just my area, whereas the parks decision, we shared the three of us as a service, which is why I would ask for your support today for that initial contribution.
Thanks for that explanation, and I can support that. Thanks.
So I got a question for staff in regards to the final point that was put forward by Director Arbor in regards to the Park Service. Being that we don't own the park, do we have the ability to take funds from the Park Service and direct it towards a park that we don't own?
Through the chair to the director. So yes, that's why we're actually recommending that it come out of the future expenditure reserve rather than the capital reserves that are available to that service. Because again, it is an asset we will not own, therefore we can't capitalize it. Therefore, it really shouldn't be coming out of our capital reserves. So certainly we could make this initial contribution at this point. And then, as I said, look forward to, bringing forth a recommendation as to the rest of the funding requirements in the 24 financial plan.
Alrighty, so if there aren't any more questions or comments, then I guess we're voting on receive report first and foremost, right? So all in favor of the report? Carrie? And then we do have a recommendation in regards to directing $25,000 to provide a grant to the Union Bay Community Club and Recreation Association to support the design of a new playground on the Union Bay Community Hall site, with funding coming from the Electoral A / Dem and Hornby Islands Community Works Funds, but I don't think we're able to move forward on that.
If I may, Chair, I can certainly provide a modified recommendation based on the direction of the committee. So a new recommendation would be that the 2023-2027 financial plan for the electoral areas Parks and Greenway Service, function 621, be amended to support a $25,000 contribution to the Union Bay Community Club and Recreation Association in 2023 to support the design of a new playground on the Union Bay Community Hall site, with funding to come from the services future expenditure reserve fund.
Director Arbor, you go with that? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Then in regards to number, is it the further recommendation?
Yeah. You can consider that as a subsequent recommendation now.
Okay. And for that consideration be given as part of the 24-28 financial planning process to include $175,000 grant to the Union Bay Community Club and Recreation Association to support construction of a playground on the Union Bay Community Hall site and to support upgrades to the trail from Jones Road to promote community access to the playground. All in favor? Carried. Item 11. Carried, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Introduce Mark Hart, who will be introducing the staff report for the directors. Mark is our parks planner. So Mark, over to you.
Thanks to the committee through the chair. As Director Arbor mentioned in the last item on the agenda, Shingle Spit boat launch is topic of conversation for today. As you may know, the boat launch has been with the CVRD for quite some time and requires replacement. So we're here today, Parks is here today to present some options towards that goal. I'm gonna start at the end and move backward. As you can see from these photos, the boat launch is in a state of disrepair. The Parks Department has known about this for some time and have been looking for funding to replace the boat launch, and we've been unsuccessful to date. Just a timeline for the boat launch, we signed on to a license for the boat launch in 2017. It goes to 2046. In 2018, we had an engineering report on the condition of the boat launch and found that it was had significant deficiencies. Subsequently, we sought grant funding in 2019 and 2020. Both of those applications were unsuccessful, and now we find ourselves in 2023 with an updated engineering report suggesting that base repairs, the minimum that we should do is about $500,000. So the recommendation from Parks is that we continue to manage the boat launch under the existing agreement and plan to discuss finance for that replacement cost as part of 2024-2028 financial planning. As I said, the base cost is about $500,000. We also have a Cadillac edition, which would include some nice additions that are used elsewhere in the region for about $750,000. And I'm open to questions.
Dr. Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And for sure, the boat launch is a key asset for the island, both for recreational purposes, but also potentially for emergency purposes or transportation purposes. When we rebuilt the school, they had to find a different route than the boat launch, and that showed the deficiency as well in terms of moving some of the buildings and the rest of that. So really a key asset for Hornby Island. What I would maybe ask of staff is two things. One is, I'm probably the only person tracking that other than my residents, but Denman Island has seen a huge amount of grants coming at them across different services over the last couple of years, and Hornby has seen very little. So one of the things that has happened in anticipation of the fire hall in Denman is as actually just Dr. Hardy, Dr. Larrock wasn't there, but one of the risk constraints around the Growing Communities Fund that came out of the provincial surplus is that we couldn't spend $1 of that on Hornby Island because it had to be invested in CVRD assets. We couldn't put it to third party, and we didn't have assets that needed works on Hornby Island. And this one, we actually looked at the boat launch, but because we are on a lease and the rest of that, the Growing Communities Fund was also not eligible for that particular project. So the result is that then we ended up with a huge amount of grants as we tried to do the distribution. Anyways, long story short, for Community Works Fund, what I would like to do today, would it be helpful I anticipate we'll keep chasing grant. I may recommend that we look at the Denman Fire Hall allocation because it's starting to be really well granted. And in my opinion, if we can move that community works allocation to this project, I could justify that to both Denman Islanders and Hornby Islanders. But for now, with the 53,000 that we were discussing earlier, that's in my reserve for Hornby and Denman. I'm wondering if it would be useful to look at that 46,000 engineering item and whether it gives, because the way to rebuild a boat ramp may actually not happen overnight. Right? Especially when you talk about the Cadillac option, it might be something that we do a bit and then we muster, and we probably don't want to demolish until we rebuild because the ramp is being used. But would there be value in making an allocation towards engineering now and then continuing to leverage and seek grants and look after whether we could do a community works allocation that gets that gets us to a replacement? Sorry, I was long-winded on that. I was just thinking out loud as I was speaking.
So maybe I could call Doug to respond to this question if he's.
Just for clarification, your suggestion is the 46,000 of existing community works funds be allocated to future works for this dock. Did I hear that correctly? Or
so when I look at the budget on table 1 for the boat lounge, there's demolition, engineering, mobilization, contingency, and total projected cost. And what I was suggesting is there's a $46,000 identified for engineering for the new boat lounge. And so I'm just wondering if we could allocate. Kevin earlier spoke of the 53,000 available to the Hornby and Denman function under community works.
the purpose would be to add that to the work plan to bring that to a full design. Is that what you're suggesting?
And then in the meantime, as part of the 24-28 financial plan, we could look at the other community works contribution potentially from Hornby Denman, or it's a question, like we also have the Hornby Parks function that I imagine we could try to build into that. I'm just looking for a pack because it's been around for 5 years and the frustration grows in the community as we look at that asset not being replaced. So I'm just looking for a financial pathway to replacement. And
I think the advantage of the financial pathway would be to find a full funding model, or at least have a portion of the funding to again put out for grants. But I think with our preliminary designs and our class estimates, we're pretty comfortable in what it's going to cost to build that boat ramp. So putting 46,000 to just advance the engineering, the drawings and details, and not having the funding of contributions of the 500,000 in place might not be well spent, as other options, if we're unable to obtain the full amount to build and renovate that boat ramp, would just be looking at potentially canceling that license. Of course, we don't want to hear that at that table, but that would be another option, in which case your $50,000 would be potentially ill spent. So just putting that out there for comment and conversation.
yeah, thanks. If I may follow up, Chair. So I guess I agree with your statement. If we can't find a pathway to the 500,000, we shouldn't spend the 50,000. So the pathway I'm identifying, let me be more precise, would be to move potentially 300 grand that's currently allocated to the Denman Fire Hall and Community Works funds and move it to the boat lounge. And for the remaining 150,000 that would be needed, I would say maybe we can tack that onto the park budget for Hornby Island, because I believe the boat lounge currently live under the so now, and the reason I bring this up, you know how much I love to leverage money, but we've had 2 major outside grant applications which we thought were really good for this boat lounge. They were both declined. So I've lost faith in us actually securing funds from outside. So I'm just looking for us. If we move 300 grand, 150, that's 450, and then the 50,000 today, boom, we're at $500,000. So the 300 from the Denman Firewall, the 150 potentially to build into the financial plan for the Hornby Park Service, and then the 50,000 that we could move today. That would be the secure financial path.
Yeah, that would be the one potential pathway, and those would require some budget amendments and a staff report back, I would think, and I think that's, or maybe I'll let Kevin step in on the process here, but that is a potential funding model, which would give us the ability to move forward.
Through the chair to directors. Yeah, I mean, if the committee staff to bring back a revised financial strategy for this service, we can certainly do that. Just want to make sure, though, that the committee is aware that that would be a significant increase to the Hornby Park Service tax requisition. I mean, currently we requisition about $180,000 a year just to operate the service. So that would be a one-time pretty significant increase to that tax requisition. We really don't have the capacity within those existing reserves to fund, really any aspect of this project at this point. But certainly, like I said, if the directors, certainly wish staff to kind of bring back something further, we can certainly do that.
One further. So just before I propose that course to get a staff report back, as you suggested, to adjust the financial plan in that direction. When you talk about the parks being a one-time hit, would there be a way to structure it so that hit is over three years in that financial plan for the Park Service? So it's about a $50,000 increase over 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, we have some reserve funding, and we do have the ability to borrow up to 5 years. So I think if you leave it with finance and ourselves, we'll be able to come back with a couple options on what that would look like and project it out in advance of the 24 budget discussions, is what I'm hearing. You'd like it sooner than later. So yeah, we'd be able to come back in September, October with that laid out and be able to make those budget amendments as we see fit.
Okay, so not to belabor the whole issue, but if the directors are supportive, I'd like to propose that course of action to look at basically we're fully funded using a hybrid model between Community Works and the Hornby Service, the Park Service. And then it doesn't, I would like to just finish by saying it doesn't prevent us as we build that financial plan to apply for another grant if an opportunity arises to see if we can land it, but then it provides certainty to the community that critical asset is finally, that there is a pathway to replace it. And it's not just me, that we've got resolutions from HIRA, from the boating community, from so many people that are wondering when the boat launch will be replaced. I'd like to mention too, in the past, I talked about BC Ferries being a potential partner, but with the difficulties they've encountered around terminal replacement on Denman and Hornby, I don't see them as a viable partner for short term anyways. So thanks, and I appreciate if the directors have any comments or other suggestions on this one.
Director Leroy.
Much. I was wondering if somebody could explain the reserve balances on Hornby and how those are where does that fund, where do those funds come from and how are they replenished?
So in light of Kevin looking up the current reserve balance, the reserve funds is something that all of our park services carry, and we tend to have them for emergency projects or in anticipation of a larger project down the road through our capital planning process to build it up for uses potentially like this. In this case, the reserve funds were bumped up for additional works on Mount Jeffrey with the recent completion of our management plan, and potentially some contribution to the boat launch, depending on the outcomes of those conversations, which we're discussing today and in the past. So our current balance is approximately.
Yeah, so through the chair to the director. So for the Hornby Park Service, coming into 2023, the balance in that reserve was just over $193,000. We have some modest contributions being proposed over the next 5 years, but we also do have some withdrawals or transfers coming out of that for already designated projects within the financial plan. That, however, is also, just to keep in mind, that is our capital reserve for that service. And given that this is a license of occupation, not an ownership, I would have to verify that those would be an eligible expenditure out of that reserve. Alternatively, there is a future expenditure reserve for this service, but it has a very modest balance of about $66,000 right now. So as I said, we are certainly fiscally challenged in those reserves currently.
If I can ask a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, alternate
Sorry, I
director.
just had one more thought, Chair. One was, you mentioned you'd tried a couple of of grants. I was wondering about emergency services. I don't know Hornby, and there's significant provincial emergency services funding now. Is that something that the island uses the ramp for?
Yes, it is something that the island uses the ramp for, and in our previous grant applications, we have identified the emergency piece. There is some emergency support funding, but looking at the significant capital cost of this project, those UBCM or larger UBCM grants aren't quite, either don't meet the parameters of this or just don't have the significant funds that you'd look for. It's more for things like generators and, you know, air conditioning upgrades, and tends to be those smaller type items typically, although there may be more funding coming soon. Yeah.
And so that's was that with lands?
Yeah, it's
Well,
currently with the province.
It's in their interest to also improve the investment.
Yeah, it was in our interest to drive the investment, which is why we originally looked at this license with hopes that either Rec and Trails BC would partner with us or the province would see the benefit in us leading this project without them having to lead it and just provide funding. Going back a number of years now, but that's how we've gotten to this stage today.
Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions in regards to the shingle spit boat launch as well. And wondering if there was a means of turning it into a park. So you could go upon pursuing the park services funds. If that wasn't the ability to do that. And if not, would there be the ability to consider also the Bill Mead Park over on Denman Island, which is a CVRD park that has a boat launch on it? Could we do some type of an extension of the Bill Mead Park that would incorporate the shingle spit boat launch? Just questions, just throwing out different ideas here.
Yeah, the tenure of the boat launches and the restrictions on the capital works reserves is something we'd have to report back to you in its completeness. I don't have the answer right off my top of my head here. Typically, you know, we have a lot of our parks are just on tenure and we've used different types of reserves. So I'd have to look back and consult with finance for those key points. But I think we're secure with the license, and that's probably as far as we would get with the province as far as land tenure is concerned. It's not very often they transfer water rights to, you know, they might transfer some upland rights to us, but the boat ramp's actually in the water, for lack of a better word. So it's typically through license agreements that we manage those.
So sorry, Doug, I know your department's pretty busy as it is. So if I'm understanding you correctly, what could be coming back to us later on is explorations as to whether or not it could be considered, or we could work on getting a park status, like CVRD park status, similar to what we have at Bill Mead.
Yes, we'll come back with an explanation of the status and how it affects any impacts to funding models. And if that needs to be changed, then that would be a recommendation in that October report. But I think we'll be, well, I don't want to prejudge that outcome, but we should be okay the way everything kind of sits. Yeah.
Okay. Again, how I look at Bill Mead Park with the boat launch there, and looking at the shingle spit and how right now the CVRD has ownership of that. To me, there's quite a there's alignment there with regards to both those boat launches. And if you only have one in place, but the other one's struggling and should actually be taken out of commission for safety purposes, then maybe it's, you know, maybe we do need to look at it from a safety perspective and fix that boat launch up so it is in alignment with the CVRD boat launch over at Denman Island. So those are just some thoughts or ideas.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm way out.
No, you're definitely on base.
If that's the case, let me know. Thanks.
Oh, definitely safety, risk, and liabilities issues and different tenures we can look at. Thank you.
All right, so we're voting on receive report. All in favor? And then also we have recommendation. Director Arbor?
Thanks. I'll attempt it and people are free to offer changes, but I would move that staff bring back a report in October that considers a funding plan for the shingle spit boat launch that could include A, the reminder of the Community Works Fund available for the Hornby and Denman fiction, B, the a potential reallocation of the Community Works funds from for the Denman Fire Hall to the shingle spit boat launch, and C, either draw from the future capital reserve or the future, what's the name of the other one, Kev? Future expenditure reserve for the Hornby Park Service. And that consideration be given to the license of occupation versus being a full park.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for that. So, going to G. Okay, so we're done. Oh, we're done.
Termination. Oh, maybe a question.
Anybody want to stick around a little bit longer or?
Oh, we're good.
All right. I'll second. All in favor? Okay. Thank you, everybody.